Welcome to the No Broke Months for Salespeople podcast, the ultimate destination for salespeople, business people, and entrepreneurs. As you immerse yourself in this show, you'll discover the secrets to unlocking consistent and predictable income. We reveal the new way to persuade human behavior by mastering the art of the teach to sell method. Get ready to transform your approach and achieve unparalleled success.
Welcome to the No Broke Months podcast. Today, I am joined. Well, first, I should tell you who I am. My name is Dan Rochon, and today I'm joined with Chris Van Dusen. And Chris and I are going to talk about how Chris Van Dusen builds and scales powerful brands. So we're going to talk about game-changing growth today, and a little bit about Chris. He's a powerhouse in venture capital and private equity, and he's currently serving as a senior partner for Solyco Capital and specializes in fueling the growth of late-stage startups and scaling businesses with a bold, brand-focused approach that drives measurable success. In other words, this guy, he gets shit done. Chris, welcome. How are you?
Dan, thank you so much for having me, man. This is great. Excited to be here. Big fan.
It's my pleasure. So, Chris, tell us a little bit. Today we're going to talk about game-changing growth, and we're going to talk about, how to build and scale powerful brands. But before we do that, I know you've got a history of, bringing multiple brands to market, selling them, scaling them, building them, and selling them. So, tell us a little bit about that. How'd you get involved in this, and what were your first couple ventures?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny. I moved to California back at the end of 2009. Company came out unfortunately restructured, which means I'm this forced or accidental entrepreneur. But I was an economics major. I love this interplay between sales, marketing, business development, and also the big dreaded finance, meaning the numbers side of the world, right? And so I started an agency in 2015. And with some partners, we grew that to be a pretty good agency, really focused around conversion rate optimization, high intent media buying, right? Everyone at the time was just buying media, but I used the fishing analogy, right? You'd catch the fish, you'd put it in a net, it'd fall right through. And so we worked really hard to make that net as strong as it could, because you could double a conversion rate, add 50% to a conversion rate without the added cost of just spending more media dollars, right?
Yeah.
And so during that time, I met some gentlemen who wanted to start a CBD company. And so I joined kind of as number 6, if you will, and we ended up growing what ended up being the second largest CBD brand, sold it in 2021. The funny part was, as I mentioned, I had this agency that was doing conversion rate optimization, was doing media buying. That's what I knew how to do. So a lot of our focus was direct to consumer, right? Selling products online. And in that CBD space, in that CBD world, it was something that no one was really doing exceptionally at the time. And we had a great spot to jump in. And I think that's a really important piece, is finding out what possibly others aren't doing exceptionally and being able to do that. Because you can't be great at everything. You can be really excellent at a few things, and doing that well is an amazing way to really focus on scale. But we sold that CBD brand. I had the fortune to found a liquor distillery in Huntington Beach with my wife and another couple. We sold that in 21. And then sold a beauty care brand, naturally, in 2019. So, for me,
so we got CBD, we got liquor, and beauty, right? Like, you sound like you're just perfect for a party, It's like
exactly. And then, I had the opportunity to do a few funds in the cannabis space as well, around what I call picks and shovels. But really, I love finding companies that have a really unique kind of UVP, unique value proposition. Can see some, kind of market sentiment, can see that product market fit start, and then being able to either now put capital or before put resources, strategy against really helping them understand why and how they'll grow the best, most sustainable way possible.
So Chris, so you mentioned about, basically lead generation and then lead conversion, and how when you're able to increase your lead conversion, then that reduces your lead generation costs. And that's something that I think a lot of salespeople, entrepreneurs, I think a lot of us focus on, the lead generation, the marketing cost, but we don't recognize that if I spend $1 for, let's say if I spend $10 to get one lead, then and I, close, $100 gets me 10 leads and I close one. Well, that same $100 can get me 10 leads and if I close five, then I just 5x my return on my investment. And so that's a really smart way to look at things. So, but going back into these various companies that you've built or invested into and scaled, et cetera, what would you say are like the key levers to success? Because as you mentioned, we can't all be excellent at everything. So if I'm only excellent at a few things as an entrepreneur, as a salesperson, what would those few things be?
So, a couple things. One, truly understand your customer. I don't think enough sales folks, marketers, CEOs, founders, you kind of name it, really truly understand their customer, right? It's easy if you're saying, I'm going to sell a healthcare SaaS business, right? Like, and I'm going to have that endemic customer base. But let's say I'm selling back to what we were, CBD, right? Well, who and why? And the
Okay.
big question is why? And then the next question is why me? Meaning why my brand? Like what's it
Sure.
going, what's attaching that? And then truly understanding how they use it, right? If we go back to kind of traditional marketing, there's day parts, right? Are they using it in the morning, using it at night? Are they using it after work, before work? Like, how does that all work? You can't just say it's good for you, you need to take it. Hard stop, right? You need to physically figure out why and the use cases and then double down and try to understand the through lines with the majority of customers. You're not going to solve it for everyone. And I think that's the
Okay.
biggest problem. And, when we invest, we look at how founders look at their own companies and how they identify who their customer base is and again, the why. And that really gives you your kind of total addressable market. When a founder says my total addressable market is every single person in the world, right? I say no, right? Because even if you're selling a product for bicycle enthusiasts, there's a strata of different types of enthusiasts, right? Who
Sure.
like riding to are professionals and everything in between. And you need to understand where your product actually fits and how it loses interest as you strata out towards the extremes. And so I think that's really important. And then build marketing, build discussion points all around that. And for the ones that are on the straddle points, be able to understand why these people love it so much and build marketing tracks around that, right? So it's you brought up a good point. Everyone focuses on acquiring. Well, if I acquired 100 new potential customers, not all of them have the same needs, wants, desires out of that product. You hope they do, right? But they don't. And so really understanding which ones are the ones that are the warmest and which ones are the furthest away and you may never get, and understanding where to spend your time, energy, or as I say, time and treasure, right? Against making them a customer.
You consider yourself like would you consider yourself an entrepreneur, a marketer, a salesperson, a business person? How would you describe yourself?
Yes.
What's your identity?
Yes.
Yes. What comes
So,
first then?
so, I look at it this way. If you look at my career from where it started, it would be more predominantly called a sales role, right?
Okay.
Out of college, I worked for a company called United Rentals, selling construction equipment. Transitioned, funny enough, natural transition right into real estate investment banking, where I was a wholesaler selling growth and income funds and mezz debt. But whether or not you're an entrepreneur, whether or not you have a traditional sales job, whether or not you work customer service, or you are a data analyst, in all respects, I believe you are in sales for either the company you're employed or the company that you run. And so being able to understand your company, what you sell, what you do, and be able to, for lack of a better term, evangelize that is kind of the nature of sales. And I think everyone does that. I happen to own a media agency, right? Marketing agency. So that makes me both an entrepreneur and that I started it in sales because guess who has to get all the clients, right? Me, right? And be able to merchandise and work on business development. And I think just, the true nature of being an entrepreneur is in sales. And there are a lot of people smarter than myself who talk about this, right? The most important thing you can be as a founder in a business is one that runs culture, vision, right? Vision is selling. Vision is selling why you should believe in this company. And lastly, being always fundraising. Now you say always fundraising. Well, traditional venture has rounds. Well, you should be fundraising in between rounds to get ready for the next, right? You're always merchandising, which means you're always selling and you're always doing business development. You're always working on partnerships. And it's the thing that most people don't realize.
Today you're another hat such as which I would call a venture capital investor.
Mhm.
And so what's the difference in your mind between being an entrepreneur and a venture capital investor, if there is one?
I think some of the greatest investors are former entrepreneurs, right? They've gone through it. They understand what it's going to take to build a company. They understand certainly the risk involved in that company. They've had other people bet on them. Um, when you look at an entrepreneur, um, you look at someone who gets up every day and the majority of the time are extremely insecure about their future,
Mm.
right? Some days it's the best day you've ever had, and some days you feel like you're going out of business.
I'm not sure if
And
I know the difference.
there's not much of one, right?
It's just a Tuesday and a Thursday.
And then what's hysterical is you go from this roller coaster of emotion to one day you're fortunate enough to sell. And unless you have some kind of second bite of the apple, or you're staying on through private equity, you sell the company and then it's all gone. And you
Yeah.
sit there. And I remember after the last acquisition, sitting there like answering AT&T emails, right? No, I would not like your upgrade, but because there's nothing else coming in, right? Like your identity's wrapped in this, stomach turning journey, but it's fantastic. Well, I think on the other side, as an investor, we're supporting and looking and doing what we can for our investors' dollars to go pick the right companies who have the right trajectory. And we're there many, many times, the majority of times here at Solyco, sitting shoulder to shoulder, helping them. So we're feeling that same pain, right?
When you have a brand, that's worthy to invest into and that has true scaling potential, how do you know?
It's both an art and a science. So the art is, I have the great fortune of having what I built up over years, a great network of what I'll call COI, centers of influence, trusted advisors, who will bring deals. I see quite a few of them. I've only originated a few since I've been at the firm. And if you looked at that as a percentage, it is very low compared to what
Sure.
has kind of come over my desk. Um, and as I mentioned, this art and sciences, I need to do the science stuff, right? I need to understand forecasts. I need to understand your cash burn. I need to understand all the things that our capital will be doing, right? What it's going to be used for. I need to understand how big the market is. I need to understand in 5 years, 7 years, whatever our time frame is there going to be the promise of a liquidity event that get our investor dollars back, right? This is the point and purpose of this, right? Um, I need to understand if this is a lifestyle business, which there are many amazing cash flowing lifestyle businesses that aren't great for the type of deals we do, right? And that's not a bad thing, right? I love those businesses. They're just not ones institutionally I can give dollars to because there isn't that multiple on exit at the end. So I'm looking at that. The art really comes in. Let's say all that's baked. It's a great transformational business. It's disruptive. It's going to do the things. It's on timeline. It has a large, TAM, if you will, total addressable market. It is revolutionary. Then I have to look, just like I'm looking at you, Dan, and go, do I think that this individual, right, this haircut or this group of haircuts can get that done? Because at the end of the day, this is a people business, right? And so there are many stories of great companies going out of business just because the two founders weren't aligned. So I like really understanding if it's two multi-founders, their views and do they sync? Is one trying to build something over here and the other is just trying to build what they like? If it's a single founder, personally, and I can kind of show you that track record on the deals I brought in, I love second and third time founders. And the
Because they've
reason
already learned and they've already had the defeat.
yes. So I was a first time founder at one time, right?
Sure.
I have nothing but the utmost respect. But I do believe, and I talk about this quite often, that the idea of being an entrepreneur has been romanticized in our culture. And I love it. Look, again, you asked what hat I wear. Like I have done that, right? Um, it's hard. It's not for everyone. And I think that's okay.
I'd say
And
it's not for
so
most.
it's not for most. Yes. And
Yeah.
so, as I'm looking across the table at someone that we're going to invest again, time and treasure, right? Capital and time to not only mentor, but help drive this company forward. Do I believe you have the fortitude, the grit, the determination, right? Add all those great words to actually do this, to go get kicked every day and wake up the next morning with little sleep going, I'm ready to do it again. That's
with
the art.
with energy and with zeal and with excitement.
Exactly.
What would you say, Chris? What would you say some of the biggest challenges that you've seen founders face when growing their businesses?
Staying focused.
Okay.
I go back to, if everyone in the world is your customer, then you have a problem, right? And this is actually part of our diligence process as well, is truly understanding your market. Um, you may have a product that can work in multiple verticals, but you end up a mile wide, an inch deep,
Mm.
right? And so uh, noise, ideas, things like that are the things that can get you off track. Being myopically focused on the vision and the mission of the company and adding as appropriate to other verticals, other sectors, other applications is the smart, prudent way. It takes longer, but you're not going to burn cash as fast. And so it really comes down to being focused. There's actually a great interview I listened to, and I think it's a little aged now, with Jeff Bezos talking about the fact that at the beginning of Amazon, with a whiteboard in an hour, he'd have 100 new ideas for what they needed to do. And one of his senior execs, who, they'd only worked together for about a year at this point, said something like, you have enough great ideas every minute, every hour, every day to absolutely ruin Amazon.
I can understand that, sure, but it worked.
Well, because he was able to focus and not share those ideas at the
Yeah.
velocity he was before. And that really is staying focused on mission. And I think that is one of the biggest things. The other, I would say, biggest thing that can cause issues is not truly understanding what it's going to take to get you from point A to point B. Overestimating, being optimistic, overselling. And look, I said we're all in sales. I get it. But overselling your ability to get somewhere, not raising your hand with your advisors or your investors or your board to say, I need help, right? There's this great story, the difference between a cow and a buffalo. And one's all weathered and big, it has humps, and they run into storms when they come. And the cow runs away from the storm. But actually, the buffalo spends less time overall in the nastiness. And
Yeah,
so
because you're running through it. Yeah.
you're running right through it. And so it's that type of back again to the back again to looking at how you should do things, being upfront, being honest, being focused. That's the way it's going to go. It should work.
I think there's a little bit of a paradox in the behavior, the typical behavior of an entrepreneur, which is incredible optimism and faith, confidence. And these are things that if you don't have that, then you got no business being in an arena. Like it just, you have to have that. But then on the downside of that, overconfidence or over an excessive opinion of yourself is not something that is necessarily a good trait, right? So it's like, how do you balance that? Like, I got this versus, damn, I need help.
So I think that everyone should have a little PT Barnum in them when they're talking about it. That's going back
Sure.
to the sales. But when you sit down and it's not time to be on stage, are you prudently managing the business the way it needs to be done?
Yeah.
Are you looking at it and understanding true costs? Are you bringing in the right people to help you analyze and say, here's our cash burn, or here's what we're going to need to really get this done? Or I think it might take 2 months when it's really going to take 6, and truly understanding timing on what you're building, what you're endeavoring to do. And sometimes entrepreneurs just haven't done that yet. And so being open to bringing in the right type of help, especially early on, is huge. Not every investor is created equally. And I will honestly stand on my soapbox and talk about that as well. If you're building a healthcare SaaS business, as I mentioned before, I'm not a healthcare SaaS investor. There are better ones out there. Doesn't mean I don't want to play, but I shouldn't lead you around and I shouldn't be sitting on your board.
When you say better, you mean better for you. Is that what you mean by that?
Yeah, there are great venture PE firms, great
Sure.
even angels that is what they have done for their career. So you know what? They're going to be what we call smart capital. They're going to give you that check, yes. But they're also going to be there to actually possibly open up doors, help you think about the way you should go to market, bring an expertise that someone like me wouldn't have. But we talk about sports tech, if we talk about things that I'm passionate about, you talk about consumer goods, things that I've done and sold before, then yeah, I'm that right guy, right, to do that. And I think that is really important, is getting the right smart capital, the right smart people around you as you grow who understand the market more than just a check.
One of the things that when I didn't mention in your bio is that you're a belt in jiu-jitsu. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
And so that took time, dedication, consistency. Would that be inaccurate?
It would not be inaccurate. It took about 9 years of training 3 to 4 days a week. I built a studio at my house, trained all over the world. Uh, Other than meeting my wife and daughter, it's probably the single most impactful and important thing I've ever done in my life.
So how is that single most impactful, important thing that you've ever done in your life besides your family? How's that influence your leadership and your business philosophy?
Do hard shit. Am I allowed to swear? Do hard
I
stuff.
no, no, we just kicked you out.
All right. Um, I showed up day one back in 2016. I had wrestled in high school. I knew what it meant to be on the mat. Really didn't want to do it. 150-pound purple belt woman tapped me out in, I think it was 90 seconds. I was 270 pounds. She was 150. And I went, whatever this is, I need to know how to do it because this is ridiculous. And then literally, like I said, dedicated my life. There's a lot of corollaries to being an entrepreneur. First and foremost, some days you're the hammer, some days you're the nail, and you don't know which day it's going to be when you show up. The other thing is,
some days you're the hammer, and some days a 150-pound purple belt takes you down.
correct. Really, when you look at it, it's a tough value proposition. I love it more than anything, but it's a tough value proposition because you're going to show up for the better part of a year and a half, 3 days a week, and you're going to have no idea what's happening.
Sure.
And everyone is going to, I don't want to use the word smashing you, but just you're going to feel very uncomfortable for an hour and a half a day. And you're not going to know what's happening, but you're going to watch the human body move in ways you never knew possible. And you're going to keep, hopefully, wanting to come back and do it more. But it takes a while to actually feel a modicum of like success. Now, success might just be defending the fact that you didn't get choked as many times as you did yesterday, right? But that's the upfront value proposition at the beginning. It's really tough. But if you can weather that, if you can then get into blue belt and get into purple belt and keep that journey going, it absolutely will change your life. And what you realize is you had the grit, you had the fortitude, you had the determination to stay with it. Again, isn't that what being an entrepreneur is like, right? Going into the storm, the hard stuff every single day, and saying, I, as an adult, because I started at 36, I, as an adult, am going to wake up and go put myself in pain for an hour. And I used to do it in the morning because it was the time that worked best for me. And what I found was every decision got a little bit easier. And as I gave you the track of success in my career, all of it started in 2017 when we started doing CBD. I had my agency. I started that in 15, but I started jiu-jitsu in 2016. And so it was one of those where no excuses. You go and you put in the work, you put in the mat time, you go and you spend that time and you feel that grit and it carries over to everything else you do. Because, I think someone much smarter than me said, the rest of the day gets a little easier when someone tries to actually impose harm on you in the morning. The decision-making ability, the decision velocity, which is all of jiu-jitsu, figuring out how to make fast decisions, right or wrong, and move quickly if they're wrong and pursue them if they're right. And that is also being an entrepreneur, is figuring out how decision velocity makes sense within your company. And this is practicing it every day.
What daily habits or principles help you to stay focused and effective in your life?
Certainly jiu-jitsu, certainly just being active. Every day I need to do something. Breaking a sweat, the feeling, no one has ever said after a workout, damn, that sucked. But they will always make excuses not to go. And so I think the biggest thing is getting something in every day seems to clear the mind, the soul to be ready. Two, being really focused on time management. And it's the thing that we just naturally as humans aren't the best at. There are a lot of dings and pings and things from our computers or from our phones that are going off that can warp you down a rabbit hole for 10, 15 minutes. And you do that 2 or 3 times a day, times a week. And you go, man, I don't have time to do anything I want. Well, I just gave you all your workout time for the week. Right. So it's really understanding how to stay focused. Those are the biggest things. And allow yourself to have some time to do some things that you enjoy. I don't care how busy you are, right? Again, I've had conversations with people who say they don't have time, and then I ask them what TV shows they're watching, and there's definitely a lot of time.
Yeah, and so what I'm, as we, sort of get to the end of our conversation here, Chris, what I'm discovering or I'm become aware of is the fact that consistent action through time create success, whether that be physical or mental or spiritual or in any other capacity, business, professionally, personally, and that there will be times where you're going to get punched in the teeth. And, then you get a choice of, what do I do about this? And the hardest thing in the arena is driving to the gym, not necessarily being in the gym. And so it's really just getting started and then, creating habits that allow for you to make decisions. Is it bad to watch TV? No. But it goes back into that. Is that a mechanism to avoid something, or is that a mechanism to to relax? And again, there's no judgment on anything, right? It's just recognizing the reality of, if you're doom scrolling on on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, and 2 hours later you come back and say I had no time. Well, just being aware of what you just did and then making different choices moving forward. So that's sort of the way that I'm summing up what I understood you to say. Am I
Yeah.
hitting that pretty right?
Yeah, I think you are. There has been for years, and we saw this whole hustle culture come out, right? And not mad at it, got some people going, right? But I think at some point it's reckless, right?
Sure.
Uh, I'm not an advocate for work-life balance because I don't think that's necessarily
I think it's
something you can have.
counterbalance.
Yeah, certainly not at the same time, right?
Right. Yeah.
However, I think that there's this piece of what do you want, right? If you prioritize it, it gets done. If you want to, you will do it. And so if you don't want to do it, don't be mad that you didn't do it later, right? So if you prioritize it, you say, these are the things that I want to achieve. Guess what? Everything else will fall away, and naturally you will select the things that you prioritize that you want to do. But in a postmortem, getting mad that you didn't do them, well, did you prioritize them, right? Like that's this rub, right? Is figuring out, well, I mean, everyone, I believe, is capable of saying, these are the most important things that I want to achieve, and then going to do them. And any other reason you didn't do them is an excuse, and that's on you to figure out why, right? So for me, you're absolutely correct.
Okay, so lightning round. You ready for some fast-paced questions and answers?
Let's go.
What's your favorite podcast?
Yours.
No Broke Months podcast for salespeople. Right answer. What's your favorite book?
There's a few, but A Road to Character.
A Road to Character. If I say, besides PT Barnum, if I say, who inspires you for marketing? What's the name? What's the first name that comes to your mind?
Steve Jobs.
Who inspires you for strategy?
Ooh, probably Steve Jobs as well. Man was
If I
brilliant.
say entrepreneur, whose name comes to mind?
Elon. Hard problems.
What's your favorite all-time movie?
Boondock Saints.
Boondock Saints. Man, you got some good answers here. Chris, how can somebody get in touch with you?
Easiest way, LinkedIn. It's Chris M as in Michael Van Dusen. Instagram's the same. And both of those you can find my email on.
Thank you for your time today, Chris. Audience, thank you for your time as well. And I want to wish that you have the best day of your life. Be grateful, make good choices, go help somebody. And remember, I love you. Remember, you are loved. Remember, you are lovable and you are worthy. God bless you.
Hey there, No Broke Months listener. I've got some exciting news. We just passed 375,000 downloads for the No Broke Months podcast, and I could not have done it without you. I am beyond grateful for every single listener who tunes in daily, takes action, and shares this journey with me. Now, with you and let's take it a step further. If this podcast has helped you, imagine what it could do for another salesperson who might be struggling. Share the show with them. Let them know there's a way to create consistent and predictable income, because no salesperson should ever have another broke month again. And hey, while you're at it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a favorable review. Your support helps us reach even more salespeople who need this. Until the next episode, have the best day of your life. Be grateful, make good choices, go help someone, and share the show with a friend. God bless you.